A long, long time ago, in Vietnam, people wrote stories about rising water because in Vietnam, floods are not rare events, they are expected. Vietnam is among the top 5 most climate vulnerable countries globally. It gets 10 to 12 tropical storms or typhoons annually. Nearly half its population, around 46% of its people, live in areas at high risk of flooding. Every year, storms, monsoons, tides, and rivers converge on this narrow stretch of land, and increasingly they arrive stronger. In the last few decades, economic losses from natural disasters in Vietnam have averaged around 1 to 1.5% of its GDP annually. Long before satellites, before meteorology, before climate science, Vietnam told a story. A story every child here in Vietnam grows up hearing. Of San Tin, the mountain spirit, and Thuy Tin, the lord of water. San Tin controlled the mountains. He could raise land itself, lifting hills, building height, creating refuge. Thuy Tin ruled the seas and rivers. He commanded rain, storms, tides, the full weight of water. They were not just rivals, they were opposites. When both sought to marry the same princess, San Tin arrived first. He claimed victory, but Thuy Tin did not accept defeat. Every year he returns. Every year he brings rain, he raises rivers, he floods the land. And every year San Tin lifts the mountains higher to hold the water back. This was not a story about a fight. It was a story about a system. Today we would call it something else, a recurring climate pattern. In 1999, central Vietnam saw rainfall so intense, rivers rose 8 to 9 meters in places like Hue. More than 500 people died. Entire regions disappeared underwater. In 2020, it happened again, not once, but as a sequence. 9 storms in 1 month, floods across central Vietnam, nearly 200 dead, tens of thousands of homes damaged. Rivers exceeded historic levels. Rainfall in some areas was 4 to 6 times higher than average. But here is what makes Vietnam different. Water does not only arrive violently, sometimes it disappears. In 2020, at the same time floods hit one part of the country, the Mekong Delta faced one of its worst droughts. Salt water pushed deep inland. Rice fields dried or turned saline. Tens of thousands of hectares were damaged. In some areas, the land itself is sinking faster now than the sea is rising. Too much water and not enough. In the same country, in the same year. This is not chaos. This is imbalance. The Mekong Delta produces over half of Vietnam's rice. It feeds not just a country, but global markets. This is one of the most productive regions on earth, and it contributes 70% of Vietnam's aquaculture exports. It's also one of the fastest sinking deltas in the world due to groundwater extraction and sediment loss over the years. In the dry season, salt water can travel tens of kilometers inland, changing not just crops but entire livelihoods. The Mekong Delta is not just fertile, it is fragile, and in some places it is sinking even faster than the sea is rising. If sea levels rise by just 1 meter, large parts of the Mekong Delta could be submerged. Entire provinces could lose most of their land, not in centuries, but within lifetimes. Cities like Ho Chi Minh City experience regular tidal flooding, also called sunny day floods. Vietnam sits exposed to the East Sea. It's a corridor of storms, a pressure zone. Along with the Philippines, it absorbs typhoons moving westward. For the Asian continent, Vietnam is one of its windshields. There is another story, older and quieter, but just as important. It's the origin story of the Vietnamese people, of Lak Long Quan, a dragon king of the sea, and Auca, a mountain fairy. They fell in love, and their children, the ancestors of Vietnam, were divided. Half went to the mountains, half went to the sea, not separated but stretched between two worlds. Vietnam was never meant to escape water. It was designed to negotiate with it. And that negotiation is already happening, quietly, systematically. Mangrove forests are being rebuilt as natural storm barriers. Elevated housing is being built in flood zones. Seasonal flood based agriculture is the norm. Early warning systems are powered by satellites. The goal is no longer only to control, it is coexistence. Vietnam has never stopped adapting, not to war, not to nature, not to change. What still needs to be done includes better urban planning, reduced groundwater extraction, regional cooperation on the Mekong River with reference to the dams upstream, and climate finance and infrastructure. The future will depend not just on local action, but on decisions made far beyond Vietnam's borders. And what is happening here is, of course, not unique. The same pressure now appears in Jakarta, in Bangkok, in Miami, in Venice, and many other spots around the world. Vietnam is not the exception, it is just the preview. Millions visit Vietnam every year. They see beauty, coastlines, rivers, landscapes. But beneath that beauty is movement, a coastline shifting, a delta adjusting, and an entire country adapting in real time. We are not just visiting a place, all of us are witnessing a process. The story of Santin and Thuetin was never about victory, because Thuetin never stops returning and Santin never stops rising. For thousands of years, Vietnam has told the same story of mountains rising and waters returning. But this time, the water is perhaps rising faster than the mountains can answer, and the questions are no longer myth. Slowly but surely, the water is rising, and so must we.